For children and families, you have a heavy responsibility as we come out of this lockdown, of course, because more children have been pushed into poverty. Over the course of the lockdown, there's been a rise in food bank use. It took a footballer, Marcus Rashford, to force the government to extend free school meals. And of course, there is a massive gap now in educational attainment because of the issues around homeschooling, not being able to get online devices, for instance, out to those who need them despite best efforts. How on earth are you going to make sure that there is not a generation of children left behind?
So firstly, absolutely, the focus on vulnerable children has been completely my focus throughout this whole year of this pandemic. I'm incredibly proud that we were one of the few countries in the world that kept schools open for vulnerable children right throughout this pandemic. We've actually extended free school meals to more groups of children than any government in the past 50 years. So that has been a really important part of the support, and also putting in that extra support to families who need help with food or supplies through the COVID Winter Grant Scheme. In terms of educational catch-up, I mean, one of the things that's been really, really great over the past decade is that what we call the attainment gap, the gap between educational outcomes for children from poorer backgrounds versus their better off peers, that has narrowed at every stage of education over the past decade. We've also been really focusing.
Lockdown has thrown that into disarray, though, hasn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I don't think we can talk about that without saying lockdown has had a
Absolutely.
devastating effect.
Lockdown has had a really challenging impact. We know that, for example, the early years are the most important stages of a child's development, and that's the key reason why we kept nurseries and preschools open even during the last lockdown. We've obviously distributed over 1.2 million laptops and devices to children from disadvantaged backgrounds, but also to other groups of disadvantaged young people, such as care leavers. Then we've also investing in the catch-up programme and the recovery programme. That's on top of the record funding that's gone into schools. There's another 1.7 billion pounds there.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of work underway. There's a lot of work to be done. Can I just ask, though, for the sort of outstanding theme has been, why did it take a footballer to make you extend that free school meals? Why was that? Why did that have to happen? Why is it the work of Marcus Rashford that made that happen?
It isn't actually, Susanna. I had extended the free school meals to more groups of children right at the beginning of this lockdown and the eligibility for free school meals, and set up at a very, very challenging, very, very early on that national voucher.
Are you saying that the work of Marcus Rashford was irrelevant?
Absolutely. Hugely respect Marcus and the campaign that he's been doing, and we've been putting extra support in through the whole period. But this has been, and he's been very supportive of the work that we've been doing to extend that COVID Winter Support Grant, which will continue to support children and families through this Easter holidays. And then obviously the other thing that I've been working on and had started on way early on was the holiday activities and food programme, which we ran in pilot projects for the past 3 years, and is now going to be.
So, Vicky Ford, I just need to clarify this, because people at home, I'm sure, will be screaming at the telly here. Are you saying that you would have been doing this anyway, and regardless of what Marcus Rashford did and the call with the Prime Minister, twice he had to intervene? Are you saying he was wasting his time? You were doing it already? Surely not. You're not saying that, are you?
For example, the holiday activities and food programme, we've been piloting for the past 3 years, and we had a manifesto commitment to increase that childcare element, and a £1 billion manifesto commitment to the last general election. And as part of that, we're now rolling out that holiday activities and food scheme all across the country in the holidays this year. So yes, there were projects that we were already working on, and I'm very glad for the work that Marcus has done to make sure that we've been focusing on.
We could talk about it a great deal, but I think you mentioned piloting, but certainly not of the grand scale that was required, which needed people like Marcus Rashford to intervene. And I cannot believe you were here on national telly for this morning and saying that Marcus didn't have the impact we all were led to believe.
Can I just point out, you voted against free school meals?
No, I voted against the voucher system being done by schools in the holidays, because there were other ways we were putting support in, for example, through the COVID winter grant scheme. And that's really important that, you know, when schools are closed...
OK, so when Labour brought the motion for free school meals in the October half-term break, you were one of 320 Conservative MPs who voted against it.
Because we had put in support elsewhere, and we've continued to do that through the COVID winter grant scheme.
You voted against the free school. You know, it took Marcus Rashford to work on this to make it happen. When there was a vote in Parliament, you voted against it.
Marcus has done some really super work in this period, but I have extended free school meals to more groups of children than any government in the past 50 years. We are rolling out our holiday activities and food scheme across the whole country, which was a manifesto commitment to increase childcare around holidays and wraparound childcare. We've been piloting that for 3 years to make sure that when it does go live, that it works well.
Okay.
And those are projects that are really, really important, and which indeed Marcus himself supports. So it's great to have his support on these projects.
OK, and it took Marcus Rashford posting those pictures of the boxes to change policy on vouchers as well. So, you know, I think let's not undermine what Marcus Rashford...
We had changed the policy. We had introduced the voucher scheme and done the top-up funding. And as soon as schools were asked to close to most pupils in this lockdown, it did take some time, and there were some shocking pictures of a few lunch boxes, but the vast majority
it wasn't a few.
It worked well.
Vicky, it wasn't a few. And I think what you're talking about is that you spent time talking about piloting and strategies, and we had all this in place, but people were looking for action. And in the end, it took Marcus Rashford for you to really pull your sleeves up and do something about it. And I think that's what happened. And it was people across social media posting their boxes, which just shocked the nation. And I think it's really disingenuous for you to come on here and try to take credit for it when it took the nation of Marcus Rashford to lead this.
So Adel,